What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for January 27th, 2020. Now, if you're new here and this is your first week in review, we do go over all of the goings-on within Star Citizen development during the week and go give them a little overview here, as well as insert some of my opinions into what's going on. I also do live stream 6 days a week, every day but Friday, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/SaltEMike. So if you want to hang out, also that's probably the one way that you can go and support me. So if you're interested in doing that, some people ask that every now and again, that is definitely the best place to do so. Now, moving on to the video. We had quite a few patches this week. A few to the PTU and one live build. So let's start out with the PTU patches with 3.8.1D. Now this basically just closed an exploit with the new medical system that came online, where if you had a bounty on your head and you used your friend's ship as a spawn point, he could kill you, you could respawn, you could kill him, he could kill you and get the bounty again, and then you kill him, gets the bounty, rinse and repeat. I think you kind of get it. So now there's a timer on how often you can get a bounty on your head. This should slow that exploit down significantly. Moving on to 3.8.1E, they tried a little something weird, allowing the shaders to spawn in slowly to allow for some increased stability on the servers. We still did have 30k errors and some server deadlocks as well. So this helped, but it didn't solve the issues altogether. Then we had a 3.8 F and G patch. They were kind of a double patch. It was kind of interesting. F brought the addition of these red envelopes into the game that are going to be hidden all around the major hubs to celebrate Lunar New Year. We'll touch on that a little bit later in the video. Now, G was just like a sneak addition that fixed a crash related to AI, active scanning on criminal AI ships. Then G, I think, went live, and the experience has been pretty good. So we have a 3.8.1 live build. There was a wipe, so you're going to be starting from scratch. And I guess we have, hopefully, until the end of March for this build to try and make some progress in it, enjoy whatever aspects of the game are currently working. Now, my experiences have been great. I've gone out there mining on pretty much exclusively moons. So for the first 3 days of the patch, I've been playing Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. I basically went out and mined in my prospector to make sure that I could crew a mole with all the mining laser heads that I wanted, as well as like an updated quantum drive and stuff. So all I've done is mine on moons. There's an issue with mining in asteroid belts, and where the rocks just kind of disappear. There's lots of issues with other missions going on in the game. So my experience has been pretty good, but leave a comment below and tell me what some of your experiences were like with 3.8.1. I think it's still expected to be kind of buggy, pretty messy, I guess, would be a way to describe it. But overall, I think a better experience than 3.8 to some extent. Maybe because we're hoping that there might not be another wipe. But again, we'll touch a little bit on that later because people think there's going to be a wipe, and I kind of disagree. Now, moving on to roadmap updates. This was expected. This was coming. And for me, maybe it's a little bit more disappointing than I would have hoped the changes would have brought. I was expecting to see a lot less things come off the roadmap than did. So we're going to start out with the positives, and it's what's kind of come in, and then we'll touch on what's left. So for positives, 3.9 already has two things in polishing. It's PvP bounties and NPC bounty improvements. Now, PvP bounties don't really, they haven't really provided us on any details of what that exactly means. I have some ideas, and I think we'll touch on that in a couple minutes here. NPC bounty improvements, though, it's a little bit more clear. It seems like it's going to allow NPCs to run and use quantum travel to avoid us if possible. So giving a little bit more of a chase. I'm interested to see how that works with the way the servers have been and all that. Will they even jump away from us? If they do, is there going to be some issues and desync and all sorts of problems that we might run into? But overall, this is what we want. We want the NPCs to be able to not just spawn into an area and be kind of stuck to it. So a positive step in some direction. We'll see where it takes us in the in recent patches like 3.9 and 4.0 what actually happens with these developments, but I think this is more of a long-term improvement than a short-term one. Now there's changes coming to ship combat. This is something that has been a long time coming, and just any adjustment to ship combat is something for me that's been a long time coming. So they call it high-speed combat, and this is our attempt, and they've been saying this quite a bit over the last maybe 6 to 8 months, that they want to slow us down and bring fighting closer together. I'm not sure how this is going to play out. Basically, they're mentioning us not having all of our options for combat, or for just not all of our options at high speeds. I don't know what that means. Maybe we won't be able to lock onto targets. Maybe we won't be able to shoot targets. It's an interesting thing. They also bring in the new targeting methodology, which I think is a little bit more of a UI update than any sort of combat update, just to clean things up and make things look and feel a bit better. And they're also bringing back ping targets, which is something good. I don't think we have true multi-crew gameplay yet where this is going to be extremely useful, but maybe something on the Hammerhead, ping targets might be something that people can make a use of. The next thing that I find really interesting and does kind of tie in with these PvP bounties is surrendering. This is actually something I'm pretty excited for. We asked to be able to interact with other players more and interact with the game more, and this is an element where if you are a criminal, you can surrender to the cops, and you'll basically have to slow your ship down and turn your engines off, and they'll arrest you. And I'm assuming we will end up in jail after that. This might be one of those improvements that they're making to PvP bounties. Now, again, they didn't provide much detail, so I'm just speculating here, but I wonder if you can surrender to other players as well. So, interesting to see where this goes. Interested to see where this goes, and we'll kind of see what happens with that. Pretty excited. And then weather locomotion, nothing too crazy. We saw this at CitizenCon. They're just kind of adding what we saw at CitizenCon that was there. Now for the rough stuff. What's leaving the patch? And to be honest, guys, we're really only going to be touching the 3.9 patch. From our experiences over the last year, looking another patch out is almost pointless. There's so many things that are constantly moving and rotating and all this. I know this causes a negative feeling for me, and I'm gonna start avoiding it possibly in this show. Let me know, actually leave some comments below, let me know what you guys think about this, but focusing more on the changes in an individual patch that's coming closer, I feel like the expectations that you have are more realistic. And when we look at something that's 6 months away, or I guess 5 months, 4 months away in the case of 4.0, there's a high probability that a lot of things are going to change on there, and creating expectations for myself and you out there might be causing a lot more anguish and anger and disappointment than is necessary. So I know it's causing those issues with me internally, but what's going on with you guys about these roadmaps, and what kind of issues they cause you? And if I should continue to touch on things that have moved really far out. So we'll kind of figure out that. Maybe I'll touch on them very briefly and not as in-depth as something like we are right now. So what's out? Repair, refuel, and rearm kiosks. My favorite part about this one is, kind of a mean thing, but I was reading Reddit and everyone was like, I don't know why everybody's so mad. They're not fixing the repair and refuel issues, like where you can't land on the pad and do it, because they're going to be doing these kiosks in the next patch. So there's no sense in fixing the bug now because they're going to fix it later with these kiosks. Well, yeah, good game, dude, because these kiosks are gone. So now what's your excuse? The realistic excuse is sometimes bugs are hard to fix, and this is one of them. So yeah, like if we really think that they don't want to fix that, it's a little ridiculous. Now, economy display terminals. This was something that would be nice, but I think third-party sites for now are perfectly sufficient for this. And while I would like to see these things in game, like some sort of app on your Mobiglass, kiosk to check and see how the pricing of things within certain areas are, I don't think this is a necessity for Star Citizen today. I think this is something that makes a lot more sense once the dynamic economy is online. Now, commodity transfer timers. This one bothers me. I was really interested to see how this was all going to play out, and I was really interested to see how cargo hauling changed with commodity transfer timers. What changed for cargo haulers? Was it a positive? Was it a negative? And what were people's feedback on it? I was really looking forward to this because we don't have a lot of careers in Star Citizen, and cargo hauling is one of the most lucrative ones, and a lot of people enjoy doing it, and a lot of people do it during these patch cycles, and I would have loved to see this sort of improvement or iteration on cargo hauling and see what happened. The accounting app. A lot of people wanted this one with the potential that we may have had with sharing money with other players and stuff like that, but honestly, for me, not that huge of a deal to see that move off of this roadmap. The dynamic mission system, which was, in my mind, the start of Quantum that we saw at CitizenCon in Star Citizen. This was the major bummer for me. Seeing this come off the roadmap and not have a place was the most disappointing thing. Seems like our experiences in Star Citizen are not going to change very much, where I thought this was going to change things a lot. And that's something that I'm really looking forward into Star Citizen, from patch to patch, is having like significantly different experiences with the game as a whole. And this was one of those that I was looking forward to, and it's sort of disappointing. This was one of those elements that a lot of us want progress towards an MMO, and this leaving is the opposite of moving towards the game of Star Citizen that a lot of you may have backed. So that one is quite disappointing, but I'm sure they have their reasons for moving it off. Multi-crew roles. I wanted to really just point this out because of how they described it. And they're describing it as not really leaving. They're just going to take the week or maybe two, however long they feel they need, to kind of describe it differently and put it back on the roadmap in more of the way we're going to use it in whatever patch it ends up in, whether it's 3.9 or 4.0. Now, the one thing I want to talk about the roadmap to end this section of the video is that the updates in Roadmap Roundup are an extreme disappointment for me. I think we had an amazing opportunity, and with these posts, and something that I'll talk about in just a second, but to say that basically, yeah, we moved these off the roadmap temporarily. We internally made some decisions. Don't share with us at all the details of those decisions. Don't share us at all the details of why things have moved off that were sitting on the roadmap for 2 months, or for 2 quarters, basically, or more. And with this staggered development initiative, we were told this amount of movement wouldn't happen. So what caused it? Why was it caused? You all can type anything you want in the comments and speculate all you want. That's fine. I do the same thing. But the real issue here is the communication on this post for me, not the fact that things moved out. We're going to move on to video updates here. And we had an Inside Star Citizen and a Star Citizen Live. Inside Star Citizen, we're going to cover pretty extensively. Star Citizen Live, we're not going to cover at all. And I think that this week was the perfect opportunity for a Star Citizen Live to discuss the changes on the roadmap in more detail. Bring a producer on the show and tell us why. And I think that was a really massive missed opportunity, but instead we got to see props get made. I don't understand. For me, a lot of what Star Citizen's open development has been kind of teaching me how development works, and saying that we made decisions with no details as to why doesn't help with that, right? It creates this I don't understand situation. And I'm ignorant to a lot of what goes on within game development. And that's where I think these opportunities would have been perfect to make me and other members of the community less ignorant to what goes on and help us understand why. You're never going to please everybody. I'm clearly very difficult to please with my name and all that stuff that comes along with the type of personality that I have. But I'd rather be disappointed and understand why than be disappointed and have no explanation as to why things are moving in and out when the expectations that were set were for that not to happen anymore. So that will be that. Let's move on to video updates and Inside Star Citizen. So this first feature is, it was the first episode back and was about kind of the final pieces to the Stanton puzzle in their minds, which I found kind of interesting. Maybe it was for this individual team, but because nobody mentioned Orison or Horizon or however you say it, which is Crusader's Landing Zone. But for these guys, and for this purpose of this show, the last pieces of the Stanton puzzle were the Microtech moons.
With the push towards completing the stand system in 2020 so artists can then move on to Pyro, the PU Environment Art team is facing one of the most daunting tasks to date: to go from concept all the way to completion on Microtech's 3 moons in only a single quarter.
So we want to see what possibilities we can do within our first quarter of this year. As we showed at CitizenCon end of last year, we showed that first sneak peek to what Pyro could be. So as myself and as a team, we're all quite excited about starting that process. But before then, we want to close out these last 3 moons in Stanton. So that time is a factor because I'm getting pushed by my boss, Chris, to start on this new system.
Yeah, again, I'm a little confused about this. So Pyro's next, and they're really excited to get into that. And I'm assuming that there's a team that works on like landing zones, and then there's a team that works on like the actual procedural generation of the planets. So I think that that's what's going on here. So if you were like, whoa, well, Stanton's not done, we don't have Horizon yet, I think that's kind of what's going on. But yeah, excited to hear them talk about a new star system. But they're also talking about the struggles of it being a really short time frame for them to work on this content. You guys remember this?
So just one thing to note on 3.8. So I'm not sure I mentioned this, but Microtech will be there. And actually, when we roll out V4, we had to redo every single planet and every single moon. So we did that actually in 2 months,
yes,
which is a testimony of how quicker the workflow is. So not only is the quality better, but the workflow is much better.
So if it took 2 months to redo the entire system with many moons and planets, I'm not sure how they're using like this narrative as a daunting task for some moons that have a few outposts on them. And like specifically, they said from the ground up, they made these moons. I don't know how, or like the planets, moons, everything. I don't know how this differs entirely from a few moons in the Microtech area, but it's just like, as per usual, what's being said and what's actually happening, there's some disconnect here, and it does get... It does just feel like something's off sometimes, and it gets me frustrated. But that's just me. So I caught a lot of flack for last week's thumbnail, but the Cutlass Red and the 890 absolutely, in my mind, bring in a potential new career. Maybe not in 3.8, maybe not in 3.9, but eventually a potential new career.
The Cutlass Red brings 2 new features into the Star Citizen universe. So let's talk about the first one, healing.
Healing yourself. If you're injured, you can just go inside the Cutlass, lay down on this bed. There will be a little prompt for you to heal. We have this really cool little scanner that goes through with a nice little toned lighting effect, kind of show that you're being healed.
And then the second is respawning, which you sort of access in a very similar way. You lie down on the bed, you set the medical beds to be your respawn point. And then at that point, if you die and the ship is still in a relative vicinity, you can respawn back to the ship, which is a big feature.
Their intentions may not be to release gameplay similar to the way mining is, and careers similarly to the way mining was released. The ability to heal within your ship is a big step towards healing certain wounds or certain types of injuries can only be healed in certain types of beds, and all the, it starts here. It has to start somewhere. It started here. And looking at that as a positive, what's wrong with that? I do think that CIG did a poor job of kind of showing off that the medical gameplay is coming, because it's not here yet, but they've taken a really nice stride in the direction to make medical gameplay happen. They showed things at CitizenCon, all sorts of things that can tie into this. We can get knocked out now. We can get really cold. We can get really hot. We can pass out. And Luke Presley mentioned something at CitizenCon about allowing bounty hunters to be able to drag other players or pick them up in a fireman's carry. And this all can tie into that actor status system and the bounty system and the medical system. So it's the possibilities are right in front of your eyes. So the reason people may be excited about this, the reason the company may be excited about this, are for all of these reasons. In 3.8.1 or 3.8, do we have medical gameplay the way you expect to play it a year or two from now? No. But yeah, I think it's a really nice step. Now, Star Citizen Live, again, I mentioned earlier, not worth the share on the show today. It was just one of those game dev episodes that I don't go over in Week in Review because they don't really provide any kind of interesting discussion topics for the show. Moving on to our miscellaneous updates, we did have a ship sale. The Cutlass Red went on sale, and it was a pretty cool one in my opinion. I think it brings a new ship with some interesting features. I think it's, again, a solid first step for medical gameplay. And it's a $120 war bond, $135 standalone. There is two types of packages: the black and red package, which is the Cutlass Black and Cutlass Red, and then Drake Flyyables, which is the Cutlass Black and Cutlass Red package is 190 standalone or war bond, and 215 if you decide to use any store credit. Then there's the Drake Flyyables, which is one of each of all the Drake Flyable ships. 675 Warbond and 725 with some store credit. We are currently celebrating Lunar New Year in Star Citizen, and it's basically the extension of Chinese New Year into 2950 or wherever we are in Star Citizen. They put red envelopes all across the game in most of the major landing areas, and they are 1,000 credits each. But there is a dupe related to them, and people are basically duplicating lots of money, and it's a bit of a mess. Now, this is what I want to touch on to end today's show. It is my understanding that dupes like these, even though it was mentioned in SCL by Todd Pappy, don't necessarily cause wipes. It's more like database issues with your ships, components not spawning on your ships, issues like that. Your Mobiglass not showing the correct amount of money, that kind of stuff is reasons for a wipe. Now, they very well may wipe for this reason. And what I will say here is, if anybody that has any power to wipe or not that is listening to this video, please do not wipe in a game that already has enough wipes as it is over some silly dupe that probably a small percentage of the community are doing, and ruin it for the people that are trying to enjoy the game that you've put out there for us. I would have played a lot more 3.8, and I'm currently playing a lot of 3.8.1, because I hope that there would be some common sense here that some silly dupe should not affect someone who's just trying to legitimately play the game when the plan is to reset around 3.9 anyway. So, guys, with that, I'm going to leave it here. Thank you so much for watching today's show. Thank you for all the support over the last X amount of episodes that we've done of this. It's been a fantastic ride so far, and I am enjoying it still. So leave a like, leave a comment, hit the subscribe button. Check out my Twitch channel if you haven't yet. Once again, I stream 6 days a week, every day but Friday, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time at twitch.tv/SaltEMike, and I will catch you guys next week.